This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
Hey, Kiani.
Yeah.
Have you ever found in your journey of business that you've sort of really struggled to bring your personal life and your business life together?
Yeah, constantly. I feel like that's probably the biggest challenge that I've faced, not only as a business owner, but as a female, as a parent, as a human, as a partner. They always tend to clash.
I reckon we have some conversations, bring in some guests and talk about humanising business, because if we do that, then maybe we can be the same person 24/7.
Yeah, let's shed some light on this topic that can be quite convoluted and make it somewhat more simple.
I reckon that sounds cool, because after all, business is life and life is business.
Humanising Business. Welcome back, team. I hope everybody is fit, firing, and on all cylinders. It is Andy here with the effable Kiani Mills. How are you?
I am good. I'm I am.
Don't convince us too much, Ki.
I'm a little emotional, but it's all right. I'm good.
You're a little emotional. Why are you emotional?
Well, I'm sure we'll get to that, but in the meantime, I'm okay.
You're okay. Well, gang, I hope everybody is going well. Today's episode is it's a slightly different one, a slightly alternative one, and one that we feel we need to do and we needed to do in order to give all of our devoted listeners and our new listeners a bit of understanding as to what's been going on in the background of humanizing business. And first and foremost, I want to make sure that you guys understand that if you do have, before we crack on, if you do have any thoughts or ideas, or if anything that we talk about really sort of gives you a nudge with respect to what's challenging you, whether it is in life or in business or whatever, please shoot us a DM. It'd be amazing if you could, because we come up with lots and lots of different ideas and have some amazing people come on. But at the same time, we want to try and help people that are wanting help. So please send us a DM on Instagram at Beauty Pom Podcast, and we'd love to hear from you. Kiani, what's been going on in your world?
Oh, lots and lots and lots. And it's been an exciting and expansive, let's use the word expansive, little while, which has been amazing, which is good. I feel like, all of those high hopes that we set on 2023 are definitely in full swing now. We're finished Q1, which is great. Well, Q1 of this year, I think it's Q3 in the financial year. So for those numbers people, Q3. But I think I'm super excited for today's episode in a sense that we're going to do something we haven't done before, and that is sit and reflect and go back through our many episodes that we've already done, as Andy said, with some amazing guests, and reflect on our personal top three. I decided to kind of niche it a little bit. I was going to say top three episodes, but then I went, nah, some of the episodes were incredible, but they were all incredible in different ways. So let's look at our top three quotes that have come through that have really left massive impressions on us as hosts. And hopefully we can recap you guys a little bit so that if you too want to hear those episodes, you can go back and listen to them, and also remind you of some of the gold that has come from the episodes that we've had so far.
I think that's a really, really good way to go, because I think we've already said this a couple of times. In order to know where you're going, you need to know where you've come from. And I think that we've thrown out a whole bunch of stuff, and we've had some incredible feedback from a number of people at various stages about various things. But we've got to understand that we take value out of this ourselves. Every time I talk to Kiani, I know that I leave that conversation a better human being for sure.
Yeah, and likewise.
And I think we've got to be careful within ourselves that we don't miss out on some of these lessons and some of these incredible conversations. We can very easily just let them flow in and out, right, when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
So Kiani, what should we do? 1 for 1?
Yeah, let's do it. One for one.
Ladies first. Give us the first quote that you really.
Okay, in no special order either, I must say. I don't have favorites, so it's not a 1, 2, 3 thing in my world. It's 1, 1, 1. See that number? 1, 1, 1.
1, 1, 1.
Here we go. My first one was when we had our guest on, Jack Littman, and he is from Restorer, the app that does the binaural beats with your positive affirmations over the top. And the quote that he said, and you will find this on our socials if you need to look back through it and get a link to the episode. It says, definitely hold your trust close to your chest. There is a difference between opening with politeness and opening with too much trust. And that resonated for me so much because I'm such a high truster. I trust big and I trust fast purely because in my world, I believe that everyone is like me, which has shot me in the foot before. So that for me resonated so much because there is such a difference between being polite and going in with too much trust.
Oh, big time. I'm a massive oversharer, like a huge oversharer.
See, I don't think you are.
Oh, it's a killer, man. Like, seriously, it has. I mean, on a serious note, it has actually cost me opportunities in the past and whatnot, for sure. I know of a very strong opportunity that was on the horizon, opened up about mental health, and the conversation flatlined.
See, to me, I instantly go, that's not a you problem, that's a them problem.
Oh, absolutely, it's a them problem. Absolutely. But it's certainly, I think what Jack says is on the money. And the context of that part of the conversation was that Jack had opened a fashion line and got burned really quite severely by a business partner. And so, that was the big lesson from him. It was someone that he felt he trusted really, really well. And it can be business related. It also can be, little personal things that you don't think are a big deal for you, or you because they're common to your life, but to other people it could be really, really significant. So in a business sense, I think it's a real strong balance, particularly with leaders. We do need to make sure as leaders that we do share enough. That's a really tricky one, because ultimately, if it's your business, it's your baby. And so, trusting people with your baby is very difficult.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to share enough so that people understand why you're even there in the first place, but also your staff have an understanding as to what the direction of the company's in, the purpose, the mission, the energy, the culture, all of the above. It's a real fine balance, right?
Yeah, and I think we've done it multiple times through episodes. It's come up about that vulnerability piece, like how much vulnerability is too much. And to me, as I said, this part really resonated for me because it was around politeness. And if I can categorize politeness instead of trust, to me, there's a clear difference between the two.
No,
I was like, yes. It's like that concept, care, don't carry. There's such a clear line between the two of them that makes me go, it's all of a sudden quite simple.
Yeah.
So
big time.
I love that one. What's yours? Number one.
Look, talking about vulnerability, the first one that sticks out, that's stuck in my head ever since it got said, was from John Toomey. When we were talking about the topic of vulnerability, particularly in the workplace and in our business lives and lives in general. And he came up with this incredible description for vulnerability, which was the vulnerability is being in a position when you have absolutely no idea what to do next and being completely okay with it. There is no victim in it, and it is when you are at your most powerful.
Oh,
how good's that?
I'm so glad you brought that one up again, because I had forgotten about that, but the impact that I had when I heard that the first time, it's almost like twice as impactful right now hearing it again.
Big time. I mean, I've mentioned, my little take on vulnerability is it's the key to true professionalism, but I think that looking at it from an inward point of view and an acceptance point of view, that really hits the nail on the head. especially when he says that last line, there is no victim in it. There is no victim in it, and it is when you are at your most powerful, which is fascinating, right? You look at the law of the jungle and whatnot, and when animals are sort of backs against the wall, that's when they tend to be their most vicious and their most strong and their most defensive and the most powerful and all the rest of it. Vulnerability can be seen as back against the wall type situations and scenarios, and exposing oneself in that sense. And the way he says it is the power is such a positive, constructive power that he's referring to, right? And I think that is phenomenal. I just love it. I love that whole phrase, and being completely okay with it.
I think that's a big part for me. That's the surrender element in it. Is you don't know what's going to happen next, but you're totally okay with it. 100%. No matter how scary it is. It is that for me is hard, but so powerful.
Yeah. And it's from in a sales sense, a lot of the time when people are in sales roles, or if you're looking at starting your own business, there's that age-old adage that as long as you've got a plan B, you'll never be as committed to your plan A. And although, especially in more recent times when the level of uncertainty possibly has been at an all-time high, whether it's financially or emotional, whatever, in society. And so it can be very, very easy to make sure that you have got a plan B. And so in a lot of cases, it's quite sensible to have a plan B, but there'll always be a little bit of you holding back.
It's like that invisible safety net. Know that if you fall, you've got something to land on, as opposed to if there was no safety net there and this was the only rope that you could climb, you would not let go.
Exactly. And it's bored. I don't want to use the word desperation because that has has negative connotations around it. But when it's all or nothing,
you behave differently. Yeah.
Oh, look, your attitude's different, your energy's different. The urgency, I think, is probably the better word around.
That's a perfect word for it, urgency.
And the urgency that you have around any of the actions or any of the KPIs or whatever it is you want to call it. It's it really just go up a notch. And that's where a lot of people end up holding themselves back. And I think you could argue that the most successful people in the world are the ones that define the definitions of what John's quote is all about, right?
I agree.
Because they're the ones that are prepared to give it a red hot crack and whatnot. And I mean, I'm myself, I'm going through one of these phases myself at the minute, gang. And do you back yourself or do you stick to that safety net and whatnot? And when do you pull the trigger? And I know full well that as long as that safety net's there, I won't be, I sometimes really, really struggle to fire on all cylinders when I haven't got that ultimate pressure. And for some people, it's really healthy to have that.
Yeah, 100%. I thrive. We've spoken about this, organized chaos is my comfortable place. So I know for me that when there is no safety net, it's when I do my best work.
Oh, man. And if you could have gang, if you could just have a little sticky beak into Kay Mills's diary for the next half of this next section of this year.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Wow, it might be organized chaos. It certainly is, but wow.
Thank God for calendars.
Oh, jeepers. Wow. Anyway, so that was my first one. Kiani, what's your second one?
All right. My second one is from the lovely Mr. A. Reid over here. And it was an acronym. Not an acronym. Actually, hold on. I got that wrong. It's not an acronym. Oh, goodness gracious. This is a great start. It is the analogy of fish.
Yeah.
Remember? Fish.
Yeah. It's not an acronym.
And look, we've even written on our social media, not an acronym. Oh, dear. Sorry about that. All right. The analogy of fish. Number 1, choose your attitude. Think about it every day. I get to meet new people. I get to know who they are. How good is that? Choose the attitude that you go into things with. Step 2, make their day. Make their day memorable or meaningful in any way you can. Be memorable. Number 3 is play. Bring a spirit, bring fun, put our best foot forwards, go out and show people why we do what we do. And then lastly, be there, be present, be in the moment, be considerate of our audiences, and make sure that we're respecting the situation, respecting the time, and respecting the person that's in front of us. How did I do?
Love it. Love it. I need to remind myself of that shit.
You do, because that's yours. That is yours. And I freaking loved this one because if you listen to the episode, there's a part where I'm like, so what does fish mean? And where's the F-I-S-H? I was thinking that F stood for something and the I, and I was like waiting, where is it? I know there's 4 parts to fish, and that's your 4 parts.
Yeah, and the reason why it's called Fish Philosophy, gang, is because it's from a fishmongers in Seattle, and that's where
which is a really freaking cool story.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool Mike's Pike place. It's an incredible joint which still exists to this day and is still world famous in the way that it brings its staff on and looks after its customers and whatnot. It's a philosophy that stood up incredibly well in my hospitality game as well. I knew that if my staff were having a good time in the context of their roles, then my customers would be having a good time by osmosis. And
happiness breeds happiness.
It really, really does. But yeah, it's something that's something I do need to go to revisit. I think there is a certain element of it for yourself as well, right? That things that like the choose your attitude and fun is those 2 in particular. They are choices. They are choices, and we all fall foul of forgetting that from time to time. We all fall foul of that.
I agree.
Any situation that comes along, it has no value to it until you give a value to it, and I need to. So
you are wise, old wise one.
Sometimes.
And for those of you who haven't listened to that episode, I strongly recommend going back and listening to the full story of that. And Andy does go into his hospitality background a little bit more, but that one for me was a real standout. And I love the non-acronym.
The non-acronym.
That's what I'm calling it.
My next one is it was one of yours that I think we really need to hammer, beat the drum of a lot more than what we are doing right now. Now, the quote that you've put up is it was, if you really want to stay in this job that you enjoy, give your employer the opportunity to also meet your expectations, right? And it revolves around transparency between employer and employee. And I think that particularly in the real estate space, I'm a lot of it I'm referring to, a lot of it's down to things like property management and whatnot as well. Because the property management space at the minute, yes, property managers have been copping it really, really hard over the last however many years, and they've been treated sort of as second-class citizens. But I feel that it's starting to swing too far the other way, whereby now employers are being hamstrung essentially into either giving in and not making any money at all, or just losing staff constantly. And this whole staff, having high staff turnover, yes, a lot of the responsibility does land on the employer. I 100% believe that, because it's their culture and what have you.
Yep.
But the employee has a responsibility as well to be transparent to their employer as to what they feel they need or require or what have you. And we're not just talking money, gang. You can't just take that as a green light to go up to your employer and say, right, I want an extra 20 grand on my pay packet. Get stuff. Like, let's live in the world of reality. But at the same time, employers in many, I'm talking loads of cases, they can't fix what they don't know is an issue.
Yeah. And this is, you're right, it's the more subtle things. It's how do you want to be communicated with? How do you want to be notified if something's not right? Or how do those conversations need to go? How do you, or would you like me to sit down and do X, Y, and Z with you together. Like it's the physical things. A lot of it comes down to communication. Sometimes it's around training. Sometimes it's around growth, doing goals with whatever it is. It's those more subtle things that make a workplace enjoyable and make you want to stay. Because we know, especially with employees, they're unhappy before they actually decide to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can, as an employee, instead of finding another option and walking out the door, have a conversation to say, hey, this isn't really working for me. Do you reckon we can see if we can find a middle ground? No employer wants to lose an employee.
No.
And I guarantee you that the working relationship is going to be a hell lot more respectful. If that employer decides not to meet you halfway, then great, leave. But at least you've had the conversation. A lot of people don't. A lot of people would just stay shitty, stay quiet, stay pissed off and get more pissed off and more pissed off and more pissed off, and then find something else and leave.
Big time. Resentment's a prick of a thing because it grows exponentially.
The minute we shine a light on it, that thing triples and quadruples, and then we talk to other people about it, and all of a sudden it's this big giant thing on our back that we can't live without.
Yeah, 100%. And it ends up leaving an indelible mark on both the employer and employee, irrespective of if they stay in the business or not.
Yeah.
So the employer, if they're harboring huge resentments around certain elements of either their job or the work environment, they will, if they don't address that, even for their own sake, they're going to end up really, really struggling to actually not see that in the next role. Yeah. And it's going to escalate. It's just going to snowball in from job to job to job. Now, Absolutely. Employers, you need to make damn sure that you, from a culture point of view, I feel that that's possibly one of the cornerstones of a decent culture is giving them the environment to feel comfortable to come to you with those gripes and those little niggles that turn into massive issues. That is on the employer for sure. But as an employee, don't think that you're absolved of all responsibility in that part of the relationship.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. It's a two-way street and you got to meet in the middle.
Big time.
All right. Lucky last for me.
Go.
I am circling back to our amazing guest, John Toomey, who clearly left a beautiful impression on both of us. Mm-hmm. Mine was different because we ask all of our guests, what does humanizing business mean to you? And John's answer to me was pretty much the reason why I wanted to have him on the show in the first place. And his answer was, I haven't yet come across a business that's totally staffed by robots. I'm going to jump in right there. I found out that there is a McDonald's in Texas that is totally run by robots.
I have heard on the grapevine that there is a project being started for Melbourne to have a completely robot-driven cafe.
Well, it's already happening in Texas, so this may be this is like a couple of months old, clearly. Anyway, it says, so I think that humanizing business is number one, allowing people to be who they are in the workplace, which is just what we were speaking about. But it also means encouraging people to be who they are because it's not just an allowance thing. It's about people doing what they need to be more genuine and more sincere about who they are in the workspace. And that, to me, perfect segue from our last conversation, is being so authentically you, because a lot of the times we'll go for a job interview and we'll fluff ourselves up, then we'll get to work and we'll be really motivated and we'll learn and we'll do all these things. And it's a bit like relationships. It's a bit like running a business. We then get complacent and we hit the slump. It's the Wednesday. It's the hump day Wednesday. What is it called? Yeah, hump day.
Yeah.
We hit that spot. And instead of finding something to drive us up, we just sit there and we idle and we get bored, and life then gets a little bit more boring and all that kind of crap that goes with it. So what John's trying to say is find the authenticity so that you can bring that to the workspace, communicate it clearly so that work doesn't have to become boring or doesn't have to become mundane. We'll always need humans in our business. So we need to make our businesses accommodating to our humans.
Big time. Big time. Big time. As long as you've got a customer that's got flesh and bone, you're going to need to have a human element in there at some point.
Yep.
The end.
Absolutely. Agree.
The end. Now, my last one, it's a combination of a couple that's from our conversation with our incredible podcast guru, Maritza Baroni.
We love you.
He is an absolute superstar, an absolute gem of a human being. And we were talking in a house about the importance of podcasts for not just for your business, but like for society generally. And, you know, Maritza said very simply that everyone has their own story. And she then tied it in with a quote from a bloke called Neil Walsh, who says, "Your life is about everyone whose life you touch, and it is about the way in which you touch them." I basically challenged her and said, right, I'm a gardener who cuts grass. How the hell do I do a podcast? Can I do a podcast? And Maritza very, very easily put me in my place in saying, yeah, well, I mean, look, I mean, do you know about cutting grass? And straight away, I'm on my back foot because I'm the least green-fingered person on the planet. And I was like, yep. And not only that, you know, she just very subtly and very easily explained that, yes, there are lots of people that will have lawn mowing businesses and so on and so forth, but there's a vast majority of the population that don't. And your story is your story, whether whether it is similar to someone else's or not. If you're the one that tells it, then it's your story, right? And it's yours to own. And it kind of tied in with a guy. I did a, and it really hit home actually with a charity auction that I did for Devesh Serene, who had his book launch called The Indian Mate, the Indian Mate, and it was about his journey from being a first generation Indian immigrant coming to Australia, so on and so forth. Millions of people have done it, but he's the one that stood up and actually told his story. And because he's the one that had the balls to tell his story, the amount of value that he's brought to his community, the vast majority of which just resonated with the truth of it, right? Because they've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. But just that reassurance that other people are in the same boat is massive. And so, you know, that's something that, again, I've been toying with myself and really wrestling with myself quite extensively. Is that very point, is that it's not like other people haven't been on very, very similar journeys, but very few people actually have the notion of sharing that story, articulating that story. And I think Britz's podcast was one for me that, you know, I'll listen to that again and again. Aside from anything else, just the way that she articulates herself is just off the charts. So that's my last one, is from the wonderful Maritza, who we owe a lot to.
We do. I agree. I could listen to it, and I'm very grateful that I do get to listen to her quite frequently. But she is the one individual who I've met in my life who can inspire others to use the power of their voice, and without being abrasive or forceful. She's just someone that you just naturally want to open up and speak to. So she's got such a unique gift, and that analogy was so spot on. I know for a long time for me, I was like, I'm not special. I'm not, you know, there's people out there that have been through way worse or way better or different or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm not special. And I remember a good friend of mine, right at the time when I was starting my kind of spiritual journey, we're having this conversation. He was writing his book, and I was like, oh, I'm so inspired by that. Well done. Like, what made you think about doing that? And he's like, well, I've been gifted the opportunity to share my voice, and why wouldn't I? And I was like, oh gosh. And that was where I was like, oh, I couldn't. He goes, why haven't you done it? And I said, oh, no, I couldn't do that. Like, I'm not special. And he's like, I put it to you that you would be selfish if you didn't. You would be selfish if you didn't share your voice. I was like, whoa, that's deep. Yeah. That's really deep. And then Maritza was actually one who encouraged me to share my voice because she knows all the questions to ask. So
big time, man. And by the way, gang, little sort of selfless / selfish plug. If you guys are feeling somewhat inspired to start your own podcast in some way, shape, or form, definitely hit Maritza up in the Guide Your Light network. You can find her on Instagram quite easily, or through us or whatever, because we're powered by that network. And the amount of support and guidance and the amount of barriers to entry that she removes is quite insane. So please, if you are even remotely thinking about it, reach out to us, send her a DM, or if you can't find her, hit us up and we'll connect you quite happily, because again, aside from the podcast mechanics, the whole point of sharing your voice, as Kiani said, massive.
I agree. Absolutely.
Massive.
Amazing. Well, that was awesome. I love those recaps.
Oh, I think they're wicked. They just reminded us of a whole heap of stuff that I'm like, shit, I'm gonna have to go fucking listen to some of these again.
How lucky are we that we have been able to be front row to these conversations?
Oh, big time. It's been awesome. It's been really, really good. And you know, and it's certainly a little vehicle that's going to gather some pace, and it's certainly something that that I think is going to be helping more and more people down the track. Of that, I have noticed it's going to definitely be helping me. That's for sure. 100%. And gang, and this is when we just let everybody know that I've sort of taken a bit of a decision just while things. I've got some other wheels in motion at the minute in the background for me, and I think Kiani is most certainly, and this is just my humble opinion, and she hasn't had me say this to her. I think that Kiani is about to take off like a rocket, and it's going to be such a phenomenal trip to be able to watch, and having played a very, very small part in at the start. But at this stage, I think she needs to spread wings and venture forth and take over this humanizing business movement in her own right. So I'm going to step aside. I'm going to let Kiani run the show from now on.
See that? That's my sad face. That's the bottom lip coming out.
Look, it's one of those things, gang, and we all have to acknowledge this from time to time. You know, sometimes you need to take half a step back in order to be able to make steps moving forward, and that's the position that I find myself in right now. I don't want to do you guys a disservice either by being on here and not being fully invested into these conversations, which are just so incredibly fruitful. So you know, and it was Kiani's idea to start this thing in the first place. And so, Kiani, I want to say thank you for even remotely thinking about this being a cool idea, because it certainly
couldn't have done it without you. It's been better than I ever could have imagined. Here's me. My first suggestion was to do an Instagram or Facebook Live. And here we are. What, I don't even know how many months down the track we are, but, you know, having run this podcast together, I feel like I know you better than I ever would from doing some little live event. But I feel blessed every single moment, every single day. And you are more than just a little part in the journey. You have been such a monumental inspiration, and somewhat, I think the biggest thing for me now is realizing how much of a crutch you are for me, because I go into these conversations with no concerns or second thoughts in the world, because I know I've got you by my side. And I know that if there's ever a moment or a lull or something, you are straight there to pick it back up again. And you bring such a bloody unique energy to everything that you do. And even in those times of darkness, there is no way that you give any disservice to the conversations that you have, because they are impactful and meaningful and heartfelt and considered. And I feel truly blessed to have spent these last few months sharing this journey with you, having you up here and spending time in my world, and how open and incredibly insightful you've been. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm trying really hard not to cry because I know this isn't goodbye. This is I'll see you soon, because he won't be too far away, and I will be dragging him back regardless of whether he wants to or not.
Well, gang, I'll be coming back on here from time to time. It's not like I'll be disappearing for good in any way, shape, or form. And even on the sidelines, I'll be wearing my humanizing business journey and cheering on as hard as I possibly can. So please make sure, gang, that you keep following this incredible little initiative that Kiani suggested, and we've really sort of grown to love being a part of ourselves. And again, like I said, the more interaction that you can give Kiani and the guests that she has coming through, the bigger it will get and the bigger it will grow, and the more support it will provide you and those around you. So please make sure that you get more people on the bandwagon. Share the hell out of this thing, right? Please do. If you're getting any sort of value in any way, shape, or form, the only sort of payment, if we want to have a better word, is to please share this with someone else that you feel it can help, because that's all we're doing it for. Like, we don't make any money from it. We don't stand to gain anything from it in any real sense. We just want to know and feel that our energy that we're putting out there is helping at least one person or two.
That's all we want.
So gang,
thank you so much.
Kiani, thank you. Team, thank you lot for listening to this dumb old pom voice, and please, like I said, it's not a goodbye. It's just a for now. We'll catch you around the bend. But on behalf of Kiani and myself, stay healthy, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and take care. And we'll speak to you again real soon.
Bye guys. Bye Andy.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are very grateful for your time, and we really hope that we've provided some value.
Follow us on Instagram if you've liked what you've heard, and if you have anything that you want us to talk about, things that might have been bugging you but you've not quite had the bottle to really bring it out into the open, send us a DM and we'll happily bring it to the table.